So to start off this project, I started looking at a few case studies to try and inform me what I would want my project to be around. And one of the first projects that inspired me is a set of cardboard furniture that Max Lamb made. And I really liked the way this looked. I loved the way he takes his photos. I like the fact that he's not covering up the cardboard and trying to make it look like a more expensive, more traditionally used material. And because of this project, I started thinking about maybe doing something about resourcefulness, maybe like environmentally friendly, repurposing things. So I started looking like very similar things as well. So, for example, would be Paul's public installation where he used upcycled scaffolding planks to make this really fun, interactive like bench in London, which is great. So then after that, I started looking at other artists that were also resourceful and repurposing things that were like just usually just get thrown out. And a good example of this is H.A. Schultz. And he made these trash people, life-sized human figures, out of entirely from waste materials. And once I found this project really inspiring and I'm very impressed by it, I realised that I wanted my project to be a bit more lighthearted and I didn't want anything so heavy. And whilst the message is very important, I knew that that's not the kind of direction that I wanted to go down. So another project that inspired me is actually a cafe in Tokyo. There's a cafe made all these objects and experiences to put parents in the shoes of their toddlers. So everything's much bigger. They've got these big, huge screens that put these giant people on that are meant to be the adults and speed up your walking to like just realise how hard it is for toddlers. Like it's the first time living, nothing's designed for them. All the cups are way too big, all the cutlery is way too big. So they give all these adults like big, huge cutlery. I think it relays a really lovely message, but in a way that's just not like it's still quite fun and playful, and it's just a very great way of giving people a bit of empathy and a bit of perspective. And then after that, I wanted to kind of merge those projects together and make something physically but also emotionally. And Teo Remy's a great example of this because he made these chest of drawers that symbolises how relationships can be chaotic but just work. And just because it doesn't look perfect doesn't mean that it's not perfect. And I found that really inspiring. I really liked that. So I was kind of trying to think about how I could make something like that. And then the last case study that really cemented my thinking of wanting to explore relationships, wanting to explore people, wanting to kind of like dissect how we are as people a little bit is a project by Honey Birch. And it was an installation featured in the Dulwich House Museum. And it's a speculate on a bedroom for a possible lavender couple. And presenting how the sleeping arrangement could be. So instead of like side by side holding hands, they thought it'd be really cute and touching toes and holding toes instead of hands. And I found it so lovely, and I really wanted to like emulate that sort of feeling for my project. So to start it off, I started looking at relationships, what they are, who are we having relationships with. It's not just romantic relationships. It could be pets. It could be your relationships with like drugs, alcohol. Just try to kind of like cover everything that I could think of. And after relationships, I started thinking about intimacy and what that is. And is intimacy something positive, negative? How do we show intimacy? How do we like intimacy? So I've kind of like shown a couple of my thoughts there. So then after that, I started just looking around my life and just seeing what I thought was intimate, what I thought was relationships. So like one of the examples was a lovely couple walking together in the park, and they're older, and I had no idea what was going on in their life. And he was carrying a shopping fur, and I just thought it was so sweet. And they like dinners, cats, and also I'm sure the story that every single couple has, someone putting cold feet in the back, strangers in the park as well, third wheeling, like I didn't know if they knew each other or not, and so I just kind of tried to explore everything. I also briefly explored maybe animals instead of people, like why do we hold some animals as pets and others as pests? And I briefly touched on it, but I wasn't really too interested. So I put it in, but I didn't expand on it any further. And then I started focusing in on more interactions I was observed. Like, so an example would be like myself. I talk at the same time as other people all the time, always talk over them. And whilst this could be annoying, I find it really endearing. Like, funny, we dance you down the hallway with strangers. There was a couple I saw, like one of them was really tall, one was really short, but they're sharing a shopping bag, and it's just not quite the right length for them, but they're making it work anyway, and they're giggling. Just wee awkward moments like that I thought were really lovely, and I started to explore more of these awkward moments. Just kind of sat around and like tried to see where I could see these awkward moments happening. So like bumping into someone because you thought a pull door was a push. I experienced that, and that was quite funny. With strangers as well on the train when it's too packed and you kind of like touch knees, and it's like such a small moment, but I think it's quite lovely, and I think it's very human that we're doing all these like tiny actions that we don't think of doing, but we end up doing. And then the observation that's kind of like shaped my whole project is when I was working on Valentine's Day and I was looking around the room, and it's like one day a year where we're told we have to love our partner, and everyone just looked so miserable. Their expectations were so high, everyone's dressed up, everyone spent loads of money on this dinner, and they just sat miserable and silent. And I was kind of maybe thinking of like, how can I kind of push out awkward moments from people and get them to enjoy them and like get them back to being human and like accepting the imperfections and just having fun with it instead of raising the expectations so high. So after all these, I kind of wanted to narrow down who I was focusing on. So I decided to do romantic relationships, specifically couples. And I started this by interviewing a few couples I know personally. And I had another sketchbook that I took with them and just really quickly sketched out what I saw, what I heard, what they said, what I observed. So kind of try to give them questions, but then also just kind of try to like look at what they weren't saying as well. So like Lauren Quinn's a great example because how close together they were on the sofa and like they were squished. They were saying it really annoyed them, but I thought they looked like they were having a great time because kept giggling and kept squirming, trying to like find that right spot. So it was a wee bit harder than if it was like a normal size sofa, but I thought that was very lovely. So I've got all these different examples of like what annoys the other person. So Quinn hates Laura's cold hands. Laura always uses her chopping board, it's way too big. All these lovely examples of like witnessing other things, like Laura constantly rolling her eyes and giggling when Quinn said anything. Quinn jitters in his sleep, which is also very common as well, what I realised. Wee things like Laura folds the laundry and Quinn's just like chucks them on the floor. And whilst that's very annoying, it's also a very nice reminder of his existence. And I think without it, she'd probably really miss it. There's loads of other wee examples. And then I started doing some other couples. Roddy and Charlotte, this is just an example of their first date. They got caught in the rain. They got absolutely soaked. And whilst that's not what they would have planned, it made that date so much more memorable and so much more fun. So I just wanted to extract more moments like that. So like, it kept describing his dog as like snakes, like slithering between them. So I was kind of maybe thinking about maybe like how do pets live in romantic relationships and like what the middle means for them. So he's from Glasgow, she's from London, and their meeting in the middle point was a 4 hour drive for him, like a 2 hour drive for her. So it's not really in the middle, but it's just like what their middle means to them. And Charlotte's very bad at cooking, dog, sleeping habits, and I've also got Dags and Alex. Initially, the first thing you notice about them is the hysterical height difference. And they're an absolutely lovely couple, and initially they didn't think anything annoyed them. And then as soon as I started talking about it, all these different things started coming up. So like, Alex takes at least 2 days to clean up after himself. Alex had a wee line that I liked, that Dags' head's around the clouds. So she'll think some plans in her head and not tell Alex, which very much annoys him. But it's just such a cute wee sentiment. Their routines, like their temperature differences. This is like Dags just constantly rolling her eyes as well, but like you could tell that she was just they're just in love, and like the rolling of the eyes is just what makes them. And then after interviewed all my friends, I took a step back a bit and I went back to the restaurant. I started observing people again, and I've like had some notices. So I've noticed like a lot of people just sat inside and it's like so serious, no fun. And also the wobbly table and how there's like two types of couples that deal with a wobbly table. There's one that hates a wobbly table, tries to fix it, lets it ruin their night, and it's just like does not focus on anything else but wobbly table. Whereas with other couples, they'll either not notice it or just laugh about it because they'll be cutting things up and like the table will wobble. But instead of letting it dictate how the rest of the night's going to go, they do just make a wee game of it and having a nice time. I also started getting really interested in like seating arrangements, choosing where to sit, so, like especially with big booths or rounded booths, like how they sit and they're sitting on the same side across from each other, further apart, closer, and then how does that change their experience? Like where would they like to sit? Awkward length hugs, also, especially with first dates. That's something I always notice outside the restaurants. And then after all that research, I kind of just started trying to come up with different product ideas. So like a weighted blanket. So the way that Roddy was saying that Charlotte always steals the blankets, making that a wee bit harder for him to get the blanket back, and just making it a game. the awkward length hugs, I thought it'd be fun to do like a Velcro jumper thing, and I kind of thought about what that could look like, and then I made it, and then once I made it, I thought this very like wholesome, cute idea was actually very awkward, but not in a fun way, in a way that it's very forced. So you have to put the jumpers on, put the jacket or top or whatever it was going to be, put them on, hug, and like consciously hug. It was like a very thought through thing instead of an accidental thing, which is kind of what I was trying to lean towards. So whilst it was a cute idea, I think once I tested it, it wasn't right. And another idea I tested as well is uneven tabletop. I thought if I maybe got like placemats that are uneven and how people would interact with that, and after testing it, there's also another thing that was just a bit more frustrating than playfully awkward. So once it was like a nice idea, and I also, this is when I realised as well, that with my project, if I am doing something that doesn't work quite right, I can't make it look undone like Max Lamb did with his cardboard furniture, because it just suited him because they all worked right. But if I do make something that doesn't work right and also doesn't look right, it will just look like a badly made product. So whilst this idea wasn't any good, I did appreciate doing that, because then I realised that's what it's going to have to look like. And there was a couple of different things, cutlery, tables I kind of explored, and then I went back to seating. And then I thought maybe if I made a bench that would topple, if couples can sit close enough together. And whilst I thought there was also like a very cute, funny idea, I made a prototype of it, and I realised that I was actually just, I was just creating the same pressure to form the way they should, instead of doing what they want. It's the same kind of thing I hated about Valentine's Day. So whilst I thought it was good, but then once I made it, it just wasn't working. And there was a couple of other ideas like bells, spices with no labels, so Charlotte's cooking can get even worse. But then I kind of just kept circling back to sitting is, especially in the restaurant as well, because it was kind of the rigidness and like how far away the couples were from each other that was kind of like I thought that like the bit was lacking. So I kind of rethought the bench and thought instead of any moving parts, I just moved the bench in, made a V formation so people could like slide in closer together. And when I was thinking about how it could be made, I thought the easiest way to do better would be to bend metal bars. But I really wanted to work with wood for this project because I've never in the wood workshop, and it was a skill that I really wanted to grow on because I'm really not confident in it. So I started sketching out different ways that I could make this. I got some lovely maple and measured it out. So I've started sketching different wee benches here, and what sort of wood. So I kind of went through a few ideas, but then settled in this shape. And I've started measuring things out, making it, changing it, trying to see how it would work, then kind of going back to it, and then in the end I think I've made a lovely wee bench.